Hi, thanks for stopping by again. Last week, I talked to you about why forgiveness is a good practice. And this week, I want to talk a little bit about how to forgive. And let me just read you, like I did last time, a little bit of what guidance told me about forgiveness. So bear with me. I'm going to read just a little about what they said. They said that. One thing to be aware of in terms of how to forgive is this. This is a clue, perhaps, for us to actually put our attention on forgiveness. Maybe a first clue that it's time to forgive somebody. So, this is what they said about that. Is your heart full of resentment, anger, harsh words that cannot heal you? Is your heart cold when you think of another? What one does to themselves is far worse than what one can do to another. And that means that healing starts with each of us. The healing that we must bring ourselves so that we are not sitting with resentment or hate or, just all bottled up with all the feelings that come up when we just can't forgive somebody, and usually it means that we're angry or we're hurt or something. There's some reason we can't forgive. But if we pay attention to how we're feeling inside, if we can remove and go just really pay attention to what anger does to us, how it makes us feel, how our hurt makes us feel, we might find that we are motivated to um, to find out how to forgive. And so they said this also: forgiving is a tool to find deeper love. Forgive yourself first, and then finding it for others will come easier. Holding on to any feeling that closes you to love hurts yourself, and in that, others too are hurt. Peace and love want to be your guide. Allow the practice of forgiveness to show you how to turn a heart that is cold into a heart that is warm with care. We are not saying this is an easy task, but for those who spend time feeling what forgiveness offers, all know how forgiveness can heal. So that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. So let me just say that I myself have tried a practice of forgiveness, and really there's no trick to it. It is a way, like I said first, of really being in touch with the fact that I'm holding on to feelings that are only doing me harm. And that's when we have to ask ourselves, what will it take to forgive? What does it take? And my understanding about my own path of forgiveness, forgiving my mother for not being a great mom, forgiving friends who have done me wrong, forgiving bosses who treated me like crap, forgiving ex partners who left me, who dumped me without any warning. All of that came with time. Time does heal if we are looking for that goal, if we are looking for that outcome to feel better. And in order to do that, here's my tips for how. May not be the only tips, but my tips. One, we have to feel what's going on with ourselves. We have to get to the depth of our own vulnerability. When we can't forgive, we're really holding on to something that is just a shallow kind of top layer tier of something. We won't. It's like we're denying something. We just refuse. It's a refusal. And in that, we're not really seeing the truth. What usually is under our ability to forgive, what's really trapping us from not forgiving, is our hurt, our sadness. And we have to not just understand that, but we have to feel that. We have to get to the depths of what we're hurting about, just to be there with it, just to accept that we feel this way. that doesn't mean that forgiveness comes automatically once we spend time with those emotions, but over time, if we can forgive ourselves for having those emotions, if we can forgive ourselves for just all of the crap we're carrying toward this other person, the way that we are hurting ourselves, that's a good place to start. And our own forgiveness comes when we get to the depth of what it is we're feeling. The other way to forgive is to realize that we ourselves have made mistakes. I can't think of anybody I know and love who hasn't hurt somebody, who hasn't said something, who hasn't done something to hurt somebody else. And when we are able for ourselves to admit that we have hurt, that me, I've hurt somebody else, and then wonder what would it feel like? And we know we've hurt this person and we feel bad about it. What do we know about being forgiven, right? What happens when we aren't forgiven? And what happens when we are forgiven? What does that feel like? And if we can understand that and kind of put ourselves in those shoes, we might have a better path toward forgiving somebody else that we've been reticent and reluctant to forgive because we know what it feels like not to be forgiven. It's a weight. When we're not forgiven for something that we've done, some mistake we've made, even though we are willing to take responsibility for it, and maybe sometimes even when we're not, it feels bad not to have somebody else's forgiveness. We have to sit with what that feels like. And there's all sorts of feelings that go with that, right? So we can alleviate someone else's suffering, our own suffering, and someone else's suffering when we allow ourselves to forgive. Forgiveness can be a two-way street, right? And we understand a lot when we think in terms of how we're not being forgiven for something that we've done. And we have to learn in all aspects what it feels like to forgive and what it feels like not to be forgiven. There are probably maybe I'll look up some books. I have articles. Maybe I will link a few. I'll write a few down here in YouTube that will direct you to books, people who are way more eloquent than I am about how to forgive. But I did want to at least put a little bit of some of these ideas into your mindset, into all of our mindsets, because forgiveness is a difficult task, but it really has so many benefits, so many great benefits. And that's really what I wanted to share. I can leave you with an anecdote about having a closed heart toward my mom, not being able to forgive her for some of the ways that I felt abused as a child, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I don't have to go into detail. And it took guidance to tell me that my feeling like a bad daughter because I was shunning her was something that I had to forgive myself. I was beating myself up for feeling like I wasn't being good enough toward her, even with the reasons. It didn't matter. And so I forgave myself first for that. That was a hard, difficult task. It was something that I had to work through, my own emotions, my own understanding about what forgiveness would free me how it would free me, make me feel better about myself. And over time, I started to see my mom in a different way. I started to have more compassion for the ways that she had to, in a way, maybe hurt me because she'd been so hurt as a child. Just, I can go on and on about it. Doesn't matter. I'm sure you all have your own examples of people in your life who you, at this point, feel like you need to forgive. And maybe even you have examples of ways that you would like to be forgiven. All right. That's what I have to say on this subject. I hope that you got something from that. Leave your comments. Let me know if that was as clear as mud or as bright as day. Love you all. Thanks for stopping in and sharing this time with me.